Welcome to the 15-Minute Financial Feast podcast, bringing you 15-minute segments to help you retire with purpose on time. We're serving up food for thought and bread for the head. Are you hungry to learn? Here are your hosts, Mark Triplett and Troy Westendorf.
Hey everyone, welcome to the 15-Minute Financial Feast. I'm your host, Mark Triplett, with co-host
Troy
Westendorf. Today we are going to be covering planning your next vacation. Now, a lot of folks right now are getting ready to head out for summer vacation, being cooped up for a little over a year with the whole pandemic situation. But now things seem to be loosening up. I don't know if you're like my family, you want to get out of the house and go do something. So folks are traveling across the city, across the state, across the country, some even leaving the country. Depending on where you're headed out for your next vacation, we're going to cover 6 specific questions to answer when planning your next vacation. We'll also talk about what you can do to estimate the cost of your next vacation and how to avoid overspending.
Which is big. So the first part of this program is, where are we going?
Got to know where you're going, right?
Got to know where we're going.
Out of the 6 questions, this one seems obvious, but it's the first one that has to be addressed before you can even start to address the other 5 questions. So where are we going? You have to know if you're going north, south, east, or west. Are we going to the mountains? Are we going to the beach? Going to the lake? Where are we headed? We're going to go explore a major city. So figuring that part out first, obviously, is where you need to begin. And then once you've determined where you're going on vacation, now you can start to crystallize the answers to the remaining 5 questions. So number 2 on the list is, well, how will you get there? So depending on where you're going, now we can determine what's the best mode of transportation, right? So Charlie, what kind of modes of transportation do we have?
Well, we got the truck. We can take my truck.
Right. Hop in your personal vehicle.
Yeah, personal vehicle. We can go by plane. We can go by train.
Yep.
And we can go by bus.
Oh, we could. Yeah.
Do the old hitchhiking too, I guess.
Yeah, hitchhike across the country. Probably hard to do with a family.
Yeah, it might be a little hard with family.
But we have to decide what mode of transportation is going to be best for the trip we're trying to plan and what is the estimated cost of that. And the obvious choice for a lot of folks might be hopping in their own vehicle.
Right.
But when you use your own personal vehicle, you have to calculate in the wear and tear on the vehicle, especially if you're going on a long trip. You're probably going to do an oil change before you leave. Yeah. Depending on the length of the trip, you might end up doing an oil change when you get back. That has to be factored in.
How reliable is the vehicle?
Absolutely. You know, I drove a 2007 F-150 for a very, very long time, and that thing had to be flatbedded on numerous occasions. So around town, I didn't have any problem driving it, and I love that truck. But I wouldn't load up the family and go cross country in it. In that case, in those situations, when they would arise, we would often rent a vehicle from the local rental car station. That way we knew we had a newer vehicle, one that had maintenance done on it. And if something happened along the way, there were other rental car stations from the same provider that we could go and swap out. So if you are flying, you have to account for maybe travel expenses when you get there to your destination. But don't overlook some of those what appear to be obviously more costly modes of transportation, like airfares. Right now, I know the airlines are really trying to fill seats.
Yeah, you can get some pretty good deals.
Yeah, so evaluate those costs, but look at all of the different factors involved when making a decision. You mentioned train, Troy.
Yeah.
Right? You said, was it your uncle that
used
to take
uncle
train
used
trips?
To take the Amtrak and go out west. They go through the mountains and they'd play cards.
Yeah.
As they're traveling, and they'd stop at different places, and it's just, you told me it's just a beautiful trip. So
my wife, and our whole family, but my wife in particular loves Glenwood Springs, Colorado.
Nice. Yeah.
The elevation isn't quite as high, so it doesn't bother our altitude sickness. Yep. And there's some really great hot springs and great restaurants and things like that. And so a lot of stuff for the family to do. Did you know you can hop on the Amtrak at Osceola, Iowa, and be out in Glenwood Springs? Right, dropped off smack dab in the middle of Glenwood Springs.
I did not know that.
18 hours later.
That would be
if I were going to drive that trip, I would have to, if I was going to take my own personal vehicle, for example, I would have to drive. It's about 11 hours to Denver and then another probably 3 hours. So I'm looking at 14 hours probably to get there. And I'm going to be exhausted when I get there rather than resting the whole time. Yeah. So anyway, evaluate those cool modes of transportation, factor that in your budget. So now we know where we're going. We've determined how we're going to get there. What's next on the list?
Where are we going to stay? So
what accommodations, right?
Yeah. I mean, are we staying in a hotel?
Can't take our house with us.
No.
So now we have to figure, I guess, unless you're camping,
rent a house.
You're taking your, if you're taking your camper or your motorhome, I suppose it's like backing up.
It's stocked.
So if you are camping, you might be headed to, a national park or state park, or maybe an RV resort. So all of those have different types of costs associated with them. But if you're not traveling by camper or motorhome, you're not camping, then you may be staying at hotels or motels, and there's various price points along the way there. Some folks might like a motel, like Motel 6. Tom Bodette used to keep the light on for my family when I was a young kid, and we would stay at hotels or motels rather. But now as a business traveler, and when I'm going places with my family, we'll often stay at kind of a mid-level accommodations like a Hampton Inn or a Hilton Garden Inn or something like that. I don't care personally so much for the full service hotels like Hilton and Marriott. A lot of the time they don't have, or they have amenities I really don't care for. But to each, everybody,
everybody's different.
Everybody's different. Whatever floats your boat. Some folks like to go to all-inclusive resorts too. And those can be good options as well if you're planning on staying in one spot and you want to pay for everything, meals and all that stuff in one fell swoop.
And it's all taken care of.
Yep, exactly. So where are we going? How are we going to get there? Now we figured out where we're going to stay when we get there. The next question is, what will we do when we get there? Yes. So what is the family planning on doing? What kind of attractions or activities are we planning on doing? And Troy, there's a lot of things that folks can do that don't cost them anything,
Absolutely, right? You can do a lot of things. Whether, if you're in Colorado, you're hiking, you're going to different parks that there's no fee. There's a lot of different things you can do that's not going to cost you a lot of money. Obviously, a beach is another thing. If you're going to the beach for the day, you can pack a cooler. You can go hang out. We do this all the time in Florida. We pack a cooler, put drinks in there, some food, and we go to the beach for the day.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things you can do that's pretty cost effective. Now, I like to golf, and now that my wife golfs, my expense doubled.
Yeah.
So when I go on vacation, I can't just think about myself golfing. But there are different things you can do. And when we talked about the Groupon and different things where we can look for deals, it's the same with golf or whatever you want to do. There's always some deals out there. Sometimes you got to go maybe in early afternoon is a better time, at least for golfing, when I can look at better rates. So there's always different things that you can look at to get a better deal in the time of the week. You're on vacation, so you don't have to do it on the weekend. You can maybe do your expensive things during the week when the costs are a little bit lower.
That's a great tip. There are other things to do, like maybe visit one of the national parks that our great country has, and they may have a small admissions fee for the carload. Or if you're going to go maybe visit a museum in one of the big cities, there might be some admission, relatively low cost admission. Oftentimes they give discounts for the younger folks and the more mature audience. Anyway, so those are some cool things to do. And then you might find yourself doing maybe a more expensive activity like renting jet skis for a day at the lake or the beach. And we know that's going to cost a little bit more, but maybe that's one thing you splurge on during the middle of the week, or maybe rent some ATVs if you're up in the mountains one day, give your legs a rest from hiking, whatever. Yeah. So all kinds of cool things to do, but just plan that out. And it's a really good opportunity to get the family involved in those decisions with either or choices. Maybe give kids or grandkids some say in what activities you're going to do on particular days, and give them choices. We can do this or we can do that. And the trade-off there is we can't do both because of the expense of both. And whether you can afford it or not, it's still a good learning experience to teach them budgeting and to make choices about, if we have $1 to spend and we want to do more than one thing, we have to make a choice.
Right.
So it's a great way to get the whole family involved and committed to that spending plan for the budget. So we've talked about where we're going, where we'll stay when we get there, what we're going to do. The next thing on the list is, how are we going to get around? Now, if you're driving your own personal vehicle on your trip, that's an easy question. You still have to factor in the expense of fuel. But if you're flying or taking a train or some other mode of transportation to get there, when you get to your destination, now you have to figure out how you're going to get around. Now, if you go to say you fly to an all-inclusive resort and you're going to stay on a resort the entire time, well, then you don't have to worry about that expense. But if you're flying to a city or you're flying to some other location and you're going to be staying at a hotel, for example, but you didn't drive, you either have to get a rental car, which can be pretty pricey, or factor in other modes of transportation like public transportation, the buses and things like that. I love it when you go to Summit County, Colorado.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time in Colorado, don't I? Summit County, Colorado has this great coach that takes you from city to city, from Silverthorne and Dillon to Breckenridge to Frisco. And it's running, it's not 24 hours a day, but it
goes late.
Yeah, it goes really, really late. So you can go for a nice dinner and some entertainment at night and still get home. Or you might take a ride share like Uber or Lyft or something like that. But factor those costs in. If you're going to leave your hotel in the morning and go to a museum and take a ride share service, factor in $25 for that. And then if you're going to go from the museum and go someplace else for lunch, then factor in the ride share for that. And then maybe from lunch to get back to the hotel, factor in the ride share. Yeah. So you can quickly add up, maybe $75 to $100 a day just in travel expenses to get around. Yeah. So make sure you're factoring all of that in.
I like your Colorado deal. I mean, when I that was probably my most relaxing trip. We went to Vail with my brother. They had the transit there. We parked the car. I never got in my car again until we left.
Isn't that great?
I mean, the transit takes you downtown to eat, takes you to the different shops. I'm like, this is nice. You don't ever have to worry about traffic.
And you really don't have to wait. And there's a lot
You don't have to wait.
That's up in Summit County, Colorado. But there are all kinds of transportation like that in various cities and things like that, particularly if you're going to be traveling to a major city. The last thing on the list, we got to figure out how we're going to sustain ourselves while we're there. So what are we going to do for meals? What will we plan for meals? And, when you're talking about traveling with a family of 4, for example, that can add up pretty quick. Right? A lot of mouths to feed. But if you are planning your vacation and thinking through all of this, if you're staying at a hotel, maybe part of your decision on where you stay depends on whether or not they have complimentary breakfast in the morning. A lot of hotels actually offer complimentary breakfast and even a hot breakfast. Not just cold cereal, but, full hot buffet. And I've stayed at a few that are even offering now some sort of cocktail hour with appetizers, heavy hors d'oeuvres in the evening. And that could be a meal for the family one night as well. So all kinds of different things to consider when you're planning out your vacation. Another thing that I know we like to do is eat local when we are there. So instead of going to a chain restaurant like Chipotle or Panera, we might check out a local cafe run by an entrepreneur in the area who's serving up dynamite food and using fresh local ingredients. And it's about the same cost.
Like a home cooked meal.
Yeah. So definitely plan that out in advance, but make sure that's part of your spending plan and take advantage of those complimentary accommodations where you can when you're staying at a particular location, whether it's on resort or whether it's a hotel or something like that.
Well, we talked about the Verbio too. Renting a home. If you're going with more than one family, that's an excellent way to do it. Our last trip to Colorado, I was with my wife's family. We had 3 or 4 of us that got a house. We had our breakfast. He went to the store and did some shopping. Maybe we had some lunch meat and different things for meals for just a quick grab. And then we'd go out somewhere at night, like you said, one of the local, restaurants, family owned. But that's how we did it. And it's really, you got your snacks, everything's there. So it's really like being at home, other than you're in another city or another place and enjoying vacation.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. The vacation rental by owners are a great option as well. And just if you do that route, just make sure that you appreciate the fact that condiments and typically coffee and things like that don't come in week or multi-day packages. So you're going to end up leaving a lot of stuff behind. But the folks that come in and clean the facilities afterwards tend to like those. So.
They do.
Anyway, to help you plan out your next vacation, we've tried to provide some simple, easy tools to use. If you visit our website at Triplett-Westendorf.com, underneath the planning tools, we have a vacation budget worksheet. So those of you listening to the podcast, you can visit triplett-westendorf.com and download this at no cost. Just click the download button. For those of you watching the video, you can see what's on the screen here, but it's just a simple way to estimate your travel, all of your airfare, lodging, transportation, et cetera, all the things we talked about, food, drinks, all of that stuff for your trip. You can estimate that out and then also track the actual. Now, if you're like me, however, I'm a little bit more detailed. So we actually created an Excel spreadsheet, and the Excel spreadsheet is pretty thorough. So if you want to have more of a detailed approach to planning your next vacation trip, we can actually get you a copy of that as well. We make that available to the folks working with our firm. The Excel spreadsheet is going to factor in every single day of your trip, all of the different activities and accommodations and travel and expenses and transportation, meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, all that stuff. And I even added 10% to account for state and local taxes. So this is a much more detailed way to estimate your trip and then to track it going forward. But anyway, the moral of our story today is vacation time is a precious time. Don't let it be a stress and don't let it be a stressful experience. Make it a guilt-free experience by doing the planning up front, committing to a spending plan as a family, and really getting your arms around how much it's going to cost in total. Not just the price points you see online when hotels or travel is advertised, but factor in all the fees and state and local taxes. And then that way you can go out and enjoy your vacation, knowing that you've budgeted well for it and you're committed to spending what you've decided to spend on it. And now you can go enjoy yourself and your family in a guilt-free environment. So that's it for our podcast this week. My name is Mark Triplett.
Troy Westendorf.
And until next time, we want you to retire with purpose
and on time. Take care, guys.
You've been listening to the 15-Minute Financial Feast podcast. Remember, every dollar has a purpose and every dollar has a timeline. If you have questions about today's topic, schedule a call with a team member. Visit www.mypt5.com. Until next time, be sure you're taking steps to retire with purpose on time. Mark Triplett is an investment advisor representative of and advisory services offered through Royal Fund Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Nothing contained in this program should be considered an offer to buy or sell securities. Different investments have different risks associated with them, and not all investments are appropriate for all investors.